friends, it's Carly and I am back again with another review. I am so excited today to be able to do this review. It took me a while to get my hands on this figure, and now that I have him, I'm really excited to be looking at the Marvel Legends Stan Lee from the Avengers Cameo figure. So I got this figure as a gift back in May for my birthday. But as soon as I got it, I knew that I wanted to have two because the box was so impressive. I wanted to keep one in the packaging, and I wanted to have one to open and review and talk about with you all. And as you guys know, with pre-orders on something this sought after, there were problems. People's pre-orders were canceled through some retailers. People took forever to receive theirs. And I didn't really want to buy a second one until I started seeing that people were getting them. There was a really strange period of time where some people would have 50 of these to sell, and then people had pre-ordered from a particular company and had nothing. It's so frustrating when things are really sought after like this, and I didn't want to take up more than my space. But as I saw that people were starting to get their figures in, reviews are popping up online, I felt comfortable ordering a second one, and I got it in, and now I'm ready to review. So I'm going to dive right in with the Marvel Legends Stan Lee Avengers Cameo figure. So let's look at the box first. The thing that I love most about this box, as you guys know, I don't typically talk about packaging, and that's because Marvel Legends is what I do the most of, and their packaging is pretty standard across the board. Also, I'm here for toys and not boxes. I like to play with my toys. I don't keep many of them boxed, so it's kind of a moot point for me. I just don't typically have a lot to say. But in this case, I think they did some really interesting and special things with the packaging, and I do want to talk about it. So the first thing that you notice is that we have a rectangular box, which normally we have the curved edges and the sort of awkward shape of the Marvel Legends box. This looks to me like a trading card from my childhood, from the 80s and 90s. And I really appreciate that because Stan is as much a part of the Marvel Legends lore and history and fandom as any of the characters that he created. And the idea of giving him this type of collector card fan service is really special to me, and it's something that I would totally buy. Like, if they came out with a series of Stan Lee Cameo trading cards, I would be all over that. Maybe they should do that. Tops, call me. Okay, so here is the box, and what you notice here is his signature across the front. That's another thing that makes me really think of trading cards. He's beautifully displayed in there with a red background. And probably the most special part is on the side where we see his catchphrase, Excelsior. For those of you who don't know, that is what Stan would always say at the end of his interviews and whenever he was talking to us true believers. It basically means reach for the stars, and this is his signature again. So we have Excelsior on both sides. And on the back we have the Avengers poster that this cameo is from and a really close look at the figure himself. So this cameo was in the first Avengers movie. They are interviewing citizens in New York, asking them what they think about the superheroes that are cropping up. And Stan is playing chess in the park and says something to the effect of, "Superheroes in New York? Get out of here," or something like that. Or, "I don't believe it." It's crazy. But he just does a really brief cameo. It's one of my favorites. I love all of his cameos, as I know all of us Marvel Legends fans do, or Marvel fans do. And it was a special moment, and it's really exciting to actually have this guy in hand. So those are really the features of the packaging. I just really love, you know, sort of the silver trim, the silver detail, and the fact that it looks like a collectible trading card on its own. The fact that it looks like a collectible in the package really stood out to me, and I'm so happy to be able to have this to display. So if you've got a figure on the way, I highly recommend getting one for display and one for play. That's something that I don't typically do. Now let's look at the figure himself. So the accessories that Stan comes with are his Captain America shield with his signature on it. It says Stan Lee there. So we get a lot of great autographs, which I think is fun. And his travel chessboard, which you can see here. It's a very simple accessory. It's got a nice weight to it, but it doesn't have a handle or anything. It's just got its gold clasps, and you can see the pattern of the chessboard here. I just thought that was a nice little thoughtful detail. It does tuck nicely under his arm for display if you want to display him that way. This also resembles an art valise a little bit. So I feel like if you're doing poses of Stan in his office, which I've seen photographs of people doing where he's hanging out working, having this little accessory on the side is kind of a callback to him sort of sketching out ideas, but it is a chessboard, so that is what this accessory is for. I had some people asking me, they weren't really sure. It's a chessboard. And yeah, so I'm gonna take off the shield. Here we can see how it looks with him holding it. We can see the back here. This is really what I want to talk about, is the painted leather straps. So right off the bat, just looking at that, we can get an idea of the type of detail and care and top to bottom attention that this figure got. When we have a Captain America figure, or when I looked at the Red Guardian, what we get on the back typically will just be a silver ring that pops up and you snap onto the wrist of the character. This is a fully fleshed out, fully detailed shield, just like Cap uses in the film, and it works really great. As you can see, I had no problem keeping it on him, and it displays nicely, and it begs the question, why don't we have that on Cap? But we'll get to that another day. But this is a really beautiful accessory. I really liked it. A lot of people were wondering why they gave him the shield instead of calling back to Spider-Man, and I really think it's just because of the film that they chose the cameo from. It makes more sense because Captain America was really sort of the star of this movie. Spider-Man wasn't there yet. So I think that that's what it has to do with. This isn't just a Stan Lee just for Stan Lee. It's from a specific film, and that's why they chose the Cap shield instead of some sort of callback to Spider-Man, which we know is sort of Stan's version of himself. So let's take a closer look at the figure. There's really nothing to criticize about this guy from top to bottom. It is worth noting that this figure retailed for $24.99, so it is a little bit more than our typical $20 price point Marvel Legends figure. But when we look at all the sculpting detail, the paint detail, and everything that they put into making this guy perfect, it begs the question, would it be worth it for you to spend $24.99 on your Legends for this extra level of care? Let me know what you guys think about that, because I feel like I would be willing to pay $4 or $5 extra for just a little bit more detail, a little bit more sculpting, a little bit more time and attention to the workings of the character or the figure. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I get to articulation here. So Stan is wearing his light spring jacket. It is navy blue, and the sleeves are sculpted and painted on his arms. The body of the jacket is vinyl and can open. It could be removed, but because his sleeves are painted blue and the shirt beneath is khaki, it wouldn't really work unless you were going to customize it completely and paint it again. Another thing I forgot to point out in the face, which you guys can see is perfect. It's a perfect Stan Lee sculpt. These glasses, actually, I'm not going to do it again on camera because I don't want to break this figure, but I sort of pried the glasses up to see what was going on underneath, and his eyeballs are fully painted. So the glasses are actually attached here at the stem to the side of his head. So if you are into customizing and you wanted to customize this figure, you could, I think, take an X-Acto knife along the side of the stem of his glasses and up the side of his eye and remove the glasses, and his eyes are already fully painted underneath. And that again just speaks to the level of detail and tender loving care they put into crafting this figure. Every single piece and part of him is fully developed and fully attended to. So moving on down, we see his belt with silver buckle. The next thing that I want to talk about is the attention to detail in the wrinkles and just the way that they sculpted the fabric of his jacket and pants. The thing that stands out the most to me, we see the pleat here in his pants, but as far as the wrinkles go, they are not uniform leg to leg, meaning that they didn't use the same pattern of wrinkles and creases on each arm and each leg and on the back of his jacket. They're different, the way that it would be in real life. So if you're looking closely, you can see the wrinkles that he's got going on here on his left side are not the same as the wrinkles over here on the right side in his pants. It's the same on his sleeves. The details, wrinkles, and folds of his jacket are not the same. We've got folds, creases, and wrinkles on the backs of his thighs. They are not the same. So this really looks like a sculpture, kind of the person as you would see him, which I thought was so awesome. I love seeing that kind of detail. And again, for $4 or $5 extra, that's worth it for me. And then finally, he's got his shiny black shoes. So when we're looking at the points of articulation, starting with the head, immediately I was concerned about the high collar, but on this figure, as you can see, we can still put his head back. It could probably go a little bit further, but it's not necessarily the collar that's hindering it. It might be the bottom of his hair, but it's a very tiny little bit, and we still get a really nice looking up pose from him here. So I don't really have an issue with that. His head poses down, and we have easy movement from left to right, and actually all the way around. And we can see that there's an axis here where we get movement at every area in between. So the head movement is great. The arms move laterally the way that they should. Turning in the bicep. We have excellent double jointed elbows that we like to see. Here we go. And the wrists turn. Let's get this out here so we can see the turning of the wrists all the way around. And we've got bending forward and bending backward. So we've got all of the movement in the arms and wrists that we like to see. Then we can look in the torso here. This is where the vinyl jacket comes into play. He can easily bend forward. This is all in the torso, mind you, in that first click, and backwards. So we've got great movement here that we like to see. There's a little bit of negative space here, but nothing too crazy. And it begs the question how often you're going to use that pose with this figure. You might put Stan in Adventures with some of his characters. That could be fun. But a lot of the pictures I'm seeing are less dynamic. Him sitting in his office, him signing an autograph for Cap, giving him a shield. So they're a little bit less dynamic, but he is capable of bending forward and backwards. Then we're at a point that I find really interesting and I always want to see, and that is we have full articulation in the waist. We have a turning waist in addition to a bending torso. So rather than do all of that up here, there is no turning up here in the torso, that he turns in the waist the way that a human body would work. So I really appreciate that. I'm sure you guys have heard me mention that many times as something I'd like to see, and they did it here on Stan. So now again, looking at that $24.99 price point, we see that we're getting all of the little details that have sort of stuck out to me in the past. Maybe it would be worth it to bump up the price of these figures a little bit more. We've got our turning in the thigh that we like to see. We've got great bending double jointed knees that work well. His foot doesn't turn back so much. It does a little bit. And then it goes flat. The movement that we have mostly in the ankle is rolling side to side. Like as you can see here, rolling side to side. So that's where most of the movement from the ankle comes from, and that makes sense. He also can move his legs out. They don't go all that far out, but they don't really need to go that far. Back a little bit, and then all the way forward. So the points of articulation are really on point for this figure, and they are the points of articulation that I would like to see on more of the action type figures, the characters that Stan created. So I think, now that I mention it, I think it would be really fun to see some poses with this figure going on adventures with Spider-Man and seeing how articulate this figure is in comparison to some of the other Marvel Legends figures that we've been seeing lately. It looks like, I said this in one of my last videos, the technology is there. They can do it. And it's just going to be a matter of whether we as consumers are willing to pay the $24.99 for a fully detailed, beautifully sculpted, perfectly painted, highly articulate figure like this one. And in my opinion, that's a big yes, because this Stan is all win for me. He looks amazing. It actually brings a little tear to my eye. I know that a lot of us as Marvel fans kind of get emotional about him because he's such a part of the legends that he created. He's a part of everything and put himself really in the spotlight in a way that a lot of creators don't. And so it's just sort of warms my heart to have this figure on my shelf. And I have no complaints about him, which is rare. You know, I'm always very honest. I try to be positive and optimistic about figures, but I'm honest as well, because it doesn't do any good to have everything be candy coated. And this figure, without any varnish whatsoever, without me sort of glossing things over in any type of way, this figure is perfect. It's iconic, it's beautiful, it works as an action figure, and it works as a statue, meaning that it's sculpted and painted beautifully. The packaging is stunning. I'm really excited about the box, which doesn't happen to me very often, and the accessories are a great callback to the Cameo that this figure was designed from. So if you guys haven't gotten your Stan Lee yet, keep your eyes peeled. I am actually seeing him more available, and I highly recommend, if you're able to get a box one and to have one to open and put on your shelf, because this figure is a piece of artwork from top to bottom, from the packaging to the figure himself. It really calls back to the man, and I think it's a great tribute to him. So that is my Stan Lee review. I'm so happy that after all the waiting that he ended up being something that I was excited about, as excited about as I am. And I've got a lot more reviews coming up. I'm gonna be looking at some Star Wars figures, 40th anniversary figures, and a lot of other things. I'm still hunting for Iron Man, so if you guys have suggestions on that, let me know what you think. I'm gonna be looking at my first ever NECA figures and getting some recommendations from you guys about where to go with that. There's just a lot more to come that's going to be tons of fun. I'm really grateful for you guys watching my videos. Thank you for sharing them. Thank you for commenting, your likes, your dislikes, your corrections, your comments, everything that you guys contribute. I'm so grateful for, and I will keep working hard and trying to get better for you. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye, friends.